What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday. Time to check out some new releases that are coming out this Friday, November 7th. There's almost 600 albums that are coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, it's kind of a big week. There's almost 600 albums that are coming out this week, but I'm only going to talk about 12 on the show today. So if there's something you're looking forward to that I'll have on here, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. You can also always go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. There's new releases on there. There's pre-orders. There's deals on records. All sorts of cool stuff. Check out. Starting off the list this week is this new compilation from Paul McCartney and Wings. So there's a couple of different versions of this. There's a 1 LP version. It's going to run you about $30. And then there's two different 3 LP versions. There's a standard 3 LP version. It's going to run you about $75. And then there's a deluxe 3 LP version. It's going to run you about $95. So Wings was one of the biggest bands of the 70s. This whole compilation was all overseen by Paul McCartney himself. And this compilation looks to capture the greatness of the band in their prime and includes, many of their best known tracks. So like I said, there's a couple of different versions of this album that are coming out this week. The 1 LP version has 12 tracks on there, which have all been newly remastered since 2010. And then the 3 LP version, there's two versions of it. There's a standard version and the deluxe edition, but they both have the same 32 tracks across the 3 LPs. Both of them come with a booklet. But what you're getting with the deluxe edition that you don't get with the standard edition is the deluxe edition. For an extra $20, you're getting an extra poster and a sticker set. I'm sure there are people out there that'll go for the deluxe edition of this, but for the extra $20 for a poster and some stickers seems a little ridiculous to me. I initially was going to go for the 3 LP, the standard 3 LP version for $75, but I probably actually, if I can't get this on sale somewhere, I'll probably end up picking this up on CD just because there's a lot of other stuff that's coming out over the next couple of months that I need to pick up. And it's going to be a very expensive end of the year for me, so I need to kind of save some money here or there. I'm not the biggest Wings fan, so I'm probably fine just grabbing this on CD. So you got that coming out this week. This next one, though, this is the one I'm really excited for this week. This is the Cranberries MTV Unplugged. This is a live performance from 1995. It's going to run you about $28. There's a couple of different versions of this also. It's going to be available on black vinyl and on white vinyl. Surprisingly, this has never been available either on CD or on vinyl, which I actually had to go online and look that up because I know I've seen this on CD, so the copies that I've seen must have been bootleg copies. What you're getting on here is the full 9 songs. It's 45 minutes worth of music. If you're a fan of these unplugged performances, this is easily, I think, one of the best. I mean, I would put this up there with a lot of the other great ones from the 90s. And that's why I said I'm surprised this has never been officially released. This is available on YouTube if you want to go online and watch parts of it on there. It's crazy to me that as popular as the Cranberries are and have been over the last 30 plus years, that this has never been officially released before. There's also a new album from Hayley Williams coming out on vinyl this week. This is Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party. So this was released digitally back in August, but it's coming out on vinyl and CD this week. It's her third studio album. It's 2 LP release. It's going to be on yellow vinyl. It's going about $34. So this is the follow-up to her 2021 album, Flowers for Vases, which musically was a big departure from the more like rock and pop sounds that she had on her debut solo album, which of course was a big departure from the more like pop and rock and emo and kind of pop punk sound that she had with her band Paramore. And Flowers for Vases was much more of like a stripped down, like straightforward folk kind of album. And back to produce this new album is Daniel James, who produced Flowers for Vases with her also. And it's kind of a return to kind of like that earlier sound for her, where it's more like, alternative pop. It's got some like electro pop on there. I've only listened to a couple of songs off the new album, but I really like what I've heard. I think it's probably her best work so far. It's received widespread critical acclaim. I can't wait to check out this entire album. I probably will grab a copy of that when it comes out this week. We'll see. I've got some other stuff coming this week also, so I might have to kind of cut back on some of my record purchases. So maybe it might take me a couple weeks before I grab a copy of that, but I probably will grab it eventually. And then this next one is one I've got on pre-order. It's pricey, but it has not been pressed on vinyl in a very long time. Even though I hated the price they had on this, I decided to pre-order a copy of it. This is Bitchin by the Donnas. It was released back in 2007. It was their 7th and final studio album. 2 LP release. It's going to be on Strawberry with black swirl vinyl. It's going about $55 though. It is a good album. It did receive a lot of mixed reviews when the album came out. $55 is just a lot of money to drop on this album. And I get it. This thing has been out of print for a long time. And if you want to buy a copy of this album off of Discogs or eBay, you're going to spend well over $55 for it. I think the last copy I saw sold for well over $100. So, in comparison, $55 is not that bad. But $55 for a new album, even though this is a 2 LP release, is still a high price to pay. But as far as the album goes, it was their first album after leaving Atlantic Records. It was released through their own label. And the band had become a little more polished over the last couple of albums. I think with Bitchin, they tried to return a little bit more to that older style that the Donnas had, while still having some of that more polished sound. And it worked in some areas on the album and didn't work on others. It still is a really good album, even though the critics were not fans of this album. It's one I've been looking forward to getting reissued for a long time. Like I said, I've got it on pre-order. As much as I hate paying that kind of money for that album, I'm still looking forward to grabbing a copy of it this week. There's also a reissue of Natural Magic by Kula coming out this week. So this was released last year. It was their 7th studio album. It's going to be on tie-dye vinyl. It's going to run about $31. Kula I think, is one of the best psychedelic rock bands of the late 90s and 2000s, but I don't think they ever received the mainstream recognition that I think they really deserved, at least here in the U.S. And Natural Magic was the band's first album with all 4 founding members of the band since their second album back in 1999. And I think musically you could really hear it on this album because I think it's easily their best album since the 90s. It did reach number 22 on the UK albums charts. It did receive really positive reviews. It just never really got any kind of traction here in the U.S. And I think mainly it's because, psychedelic rock has not been all that popular here in the U.S., really since the 70s. Yeah, there was some of that in the 90s, but I think music was so different in the 90s. And there were so many different genres that got popular for very short periods of the time in the 90s that something like psychedelic rock could come up and have its moment also. But as far as any kind of sustained success, it's really been, I think, since the 70s. But if you are a fan of psychedelic rock, Kula is definitely a band to go back through and check out. I think they're one of the more unique bands of the last 25 plus years. And Natural Magic is probably their 3rd best album behind their first 2 albums. So you got a reissue of that coming out this week. Then you've also got singles by Adamant coming out. This is a new career-spanning compilation. 2 LP release is going to be on red and white vinyl. It's kind of pricey, though. It's not as pricey as the Donna's release, but it's going to run you about $47. So you got 20 tracks on here across the 2 LPs. This is music from his solo career and also his time with Adam and the Ants in the late 70s and early 80s. It includes all of his best-known tracks, plus some great lesser-known ones. I think Adam Ant is one of those artists I'm perfectly fine just having a compilation of his music. $47 is a lot for me, though, so if I can find a copy for about $10 cheaper, I'd be a lot more inclined to grab a copy of it, but $47 is a lot of money for me. It is a European release, so it's being imported in the U.S., so I think there's some additional costs there that's kind of driving up the price. Something I was a little surprised to see get reissued this week is Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. Came out back in 2013. It was their 4th and final studio album. 2 LP releases going to about $37. This is easily one of the biggest albums of the 2010s, but I was kind of surprised to see this getting reissued because they just did a 10th anniversary release a couple years ago for this, which you can still find for around the same price. This album was massive when it was released. It hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. It would sell over a couple million copies here in the U.S. It won multiple Grammys. It blended electronic music with some of that disco nostalgia. It's an album that 12 years after it was released, still sells well, still flies off the shelf whenever it gets reissued. So I guess I shouldn't be all that surprised to see on the list for this week. And you've also got Flight to Jordan by Duke Jordan coming out. This came out back in 1960 as part of the Blue Note Tone Poet series. So these are always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes, suppressed RTI. These are always going to be some of the best sounding jazz albums you can pick up. It's going to run you about $39. So Duke actually got his start in the late 40s playing alongside Miles Davis in the Charlie Parker Quintet. But it wasn't until the mid-50s that he started out on his own amazing career as a band leader and recorded his masterpiece in 1960. And it was interesting. A few years after he released this album, he would actually take a break from jazz music, and he spent a couple of years as a taxi driver in New York City. And after returning to music, he would release some other really good albums, but nothing ever equal what he did on this one. He had some great jazz musicians on this album with him, though. He had Dizzy Reese, Stanley Turrentine. He had Reggie Workman on here, Art Taylor on drums. It was a great lineup for one of the finest jazz albums of the early part of the 60s. There's also Move Along by the All-American Rejects getting reissued this week. Came out back in 2005. It was their second studio album. It's been on translucent grape vinyl. It's going about $30. They had some success with their self-titled album in 2003. But this is the album that really kind of broke them into the mainstream. You know, it hit number 6 on the Billboard 200. It would sell a couple million copies here in the U.S. This is the album that really helped make them one of the biggest rock bands in the middle part of the 2000s. I know the last 3 or 4 reissues for this album have had this reflective cover on the album. Looks like they've gone back to just the standard black artwork for this one. This is one of those mid 2000s power pop albums that I never really got into when it was released, that I started listening to a little bit more over the last couple of years. You know, $30 is not a bad price for a reissue. I might grab a copy of that one this week. I have had it on my want list on Discogs for the last maybe year and a half. So, you know, like I said, $30 isn't bad. Maybe I'll grab a copy of that one. Then you've also got Wake Me Up When It's Over by Faster Pussycat getting reissued. Came out back in 1989. It was their second studio album. It's a music on vinyl release, so it's limited to 1,000 copies. It's going to be on gold vinyl. It's going to run about $40. This album marked kind of a transition for the band, where the first album was more of that kind of sleazy kind of hair metal rock. And this album, I think, was more like a straightforward kind of blues rock album. And I think it resulted in easily the band's best album, as the band's only top 50 album, and it being a gold album here in the U.S. I've long said this is one of those albums where, had it been released a year or two earlier, I think it would have been a much bigger album. I think the album's kind of widely known for the single House of Pain, which is not anywhere close to being the best song on this album, which I think is something that happened a lot in the later part of the 80s, where you had that big power ballad that would get really popular, and then you'd go listen to the album and there'd be 4 or 5 other songs. You're like, wow, this song is so much better than the one popular song off this album. So, it's one I've already got in my collection, so I can pass on that one this week. There's also the new album from Agnostic Front coming out this week. This is Echoes of Eternity. It's their 13th studio album. It's going to be on red vinyl. It's going to run about $30. The New York hardcore legends are still going strong after all these years. They're still trying to take chances with their music. They're still trying to push the boundaries of what they can do, even after 40 years. It's the band's first album since Get Loud in 2019. They've already released 2 singles off the new album, including Matter of Life and Death, with DMC from Run DMC. I've never been a huge hardcore fan, but Agnostic Front, I think, is easily one of the most consistent hardcore bands of the last 40 plus years. And it's great to see them still releasing great music 40 plus years into their career. It's one I probably won't pick up this week, but I'll at least stream it and check it out when it gets released. And then the last album I got on my list is Chunk No Captain Chunk, Pardon My French. So this came out back in 2013. It was their second studio album. It was a 2 LP release and got metallic gold vinyl. It's going about $30. So it's actually a reissue of the 10th anniversary release that came out in 2023. It does include the 4 bonus tracks that were on that release. The French band definitely brought a lighter side to metalcore, and while they never had any big mainstream success, I think this definitely was by far their biggest album, and I think probably their best album. But since this was just reissued a couple of years ago, I'm surprised to see it getting reissued already. And it's different with Daft Punk getting reissued, because that was a really big release, really popular release that sells well. I'm not sure how fast, Chunk No Captain Chunk really flies out the shelves these days. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. Like I said, I've already got that Donnas album on order, even though I hate the price for it. I'm looking forward to grabbing a copy of that this week. I'm sure I'll probably also grab that MTV Unplugged by Cranberries. Maybe I'll grab that All-American Rejects. We'll see. Maybe, like I said, $30 is not a bad price for that reissue. Maybe that Agnostic Front, I'll stream that one first and check that one out. But let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.